Well, welcome to In the Kitchen with Grace. Today we are making homemade naan bread. I absolutely love doing naan bread pizzas for my lunches. I love to add fresh veggies or fresh fruits. It's a really nice, healthy, filling lunch. And I love to use the mini naan breads that I get from Aldi's. They're so quick and convenient, and they're really tasty. But when I have time, especially here in the winter months, I really like to do homemade naan bread. And so that's what we are going to do today. I'm going to list all of the ingredients and steps in the description below. And we're going to start by activating our yeast. So I have one instant yeast packet, and I'm going to go ahead and just put that into a little bowl. I have half a cup of really warm water. You don't want like scalding hot, but you definitely want it warm. Put that in there, and then we are going to add 1 tablespoon of sugar. Yeast really loves sugar, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that in there, and I'm gonna whisk this together just a little. Get that sugar in there, and we are going to let this sit and activate. It's going to take maybe 8 to 10 minutes or so. It'll get foamy and bubbly, and that's how we'll know when it is ready to roll. So I'm going to set that to the side. And while that's activating, I'm going to get my dry ingredients together. I'm going to start with 2.5 cups of flour. I'm just using regular flour. And then I'm actually going to add another teaspoon of sugar into the flour. Gives it just a little bit of a sweet hint. And then we are going to do 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Ooh, that might be a little bit more. It's okay. And we are going to whisk this together, get the salt and the sugar mixed in there. And then this recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to go melt this in the microwave really quick. Go ahead and crack my 1 egg. We're gonna do 2 tablespoons of minced garlic. Now, if you're doing veggie or meat style toppings for your naan breads, definitely use the garlic. If you're going to use fruit, you may want to omit the garlic. Totally up to you. I personally like the health benefits of garlic, and I like garlic, so I kind of always make it with garlic. You could also use a lesser amount if you would like. I just really like the flavor that it adds to the naan bread. I'm going to add that into my butter. I'm actually going to just do 1 tablespoon today. Grab my whisk. Kind of mix that together. That warm butter will kind of start to bring out the flavors of your garlic. And my yeast is already getting bubbly, so I'm going to give it just another minute here and let that finish activating. So my yeast is very poofy, and it got foamy and bubbly, and so we are going to start mixing all of our ingredients together now. I am going to go ahead and add our yeast mixture into the flour. Should we get all of that in there? I'm going to give this just a quick little mix, kind of let that start blending a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to add our egg. We're going to add our butter garlic. We're going to go ahead and put in 3 tablespoons of oil. I'm using canola oil. You could use olive oil, whatever you want to use. add in a 1/4 cup of yogurt. I like to use Greek yogurt. This particular kind is honey vanilla flavored. I feel like that honey vanilla adds just a little hint of sweetness to your bread. Feel free to use whatever yogurt you want to. It's a little bit over a 1/4 cup. It's perfectly fine. Yogurt, anytime you're baking, yogurt adds a little bit to the moisture of your bread. It makes it a little bit softer. We're gonna go ahead and mix this all together. Make sure you get that egg really incorporated into your dough. And when you're making bread, you can tell that it's getting mixed well when your dough is pulling away from the bowl. I definitely, when I'm making sourdough or French bread, pay attention to that. Just getting the last bit of flour worked in there. Okay, I'm gonna put some flour onto my countertop here. Get my hands coated and take our dough out. You kind of just want to roll it into a little bit of a ball. We're not kneading it. We're just kind of getting it all together. And I'm going to put it back into my bowl and I'm going to let it rise. It's winter and so my kitchen is not as warm as it is in the summer. And I have not been baking today, so I'm gonna go ahead and cover it. Kind of helps it to rise a little bit better. If your kitchen's nice and warm, you don't need to cover it. And then we'll come back and we'll roll it out into our flat naan breads. All right, we are ready to roll out our naan bread dough. It has risen a nice amount, and I'm gonna put it here onto my floured countertop. And we are going to roll it flat. I'm going to kind of just give it a quick little light knead, not too much there. We're going to flour up our rolling pin. And then we are going to roll this nice and flat. You want to try to get this into a bit of a rectangle so that your pieces are about the same size. All right. We're going to go ahead and cut this right down the middle. Now you can make these as small or big as you like. I like to have some medium-sized ones, and then I like to have some smaller ones. I am definitely a variety flavor person. I like to have more than one flavor in my meal, in my lunch, and so I often will make 2 smaller ones with different toppings. Or you can have them for dipping into soups and stews. It goes great with chili and like chicken stew. And so I like to have them different sizes. Make them however big you would like to. We're going to go prepare our skillet. And before we go prepare the skillet, we are going to give these a nice little coating of butter. And then we're going to fry them in the skillet. So if you want to, you can melt your butter and just kind of brush it on. I personally like to actually spread it. I use a salted sweet cream butter on mine. Actually, I use it for just about all my cooking. And if you want to, you could sprinkle some sea salt onto your naan bread. Just kind of depends on what your toppings are going to be. I'm actually going to be doing fruit toppings for these. I'm going to do a pear and gorgonzola. I have some leftover gorgonzola, cheese crumbles, and the other one's going to be blueberry and feta. I will link to some of the naan bread recipes that I shared with you in the fall. I did like an Italian one. I had pepperoni and olives and onions. So good. That's by far my favorite. Drizzled with some balsamic vinegar. Oh, but it is winter and I like to try to find ways to add fruit into my meals. And so I like to do some fruit pizzas. And that's what we'll be doing with these. So I'm gonna go get the skillet ready. After I bake it on one side, I do put butter on the other side as well. Actually, I might just do that now. Sometimes I just do it piece by piece, but why not? We'll do it all at once. So I am frying these in a medium-sized skillet, so I can just do a couple pieces at a time. I put a little bit of oil into my skillet. Not a ton, just enough so that I could tell when my skillet is good and hot. Kind of like when French toast, you really want to make sure it goes in and starts to sizzle right away. So we're going to let this bake for about a minute or two on each side, flip it, and we'll go through all of our naan bread pieces and fry them this way. It really doesn't take long for your bread to cook. You want to make sure that it does get done and cooked all the way. So that if you're going to use it as like a dipping bread, that it's thoroughly cooked. If you plan on making pizzas out of this, it's okay if they're just slightly undercooked because they'll finish baking when they're in the oven. So keep an eye on them though, because you don't want them to burn. Some other alternatives you could do is putting some garlic salt on top. I'm going to be using my whipped feta dip that I just made for my fruit pizzas today. That'll kind of be a nice base. Into the dough, you could also add some rosemary, some thyme, oregano, some sweet basil. This is just such a versatile bread recipe that I love. I'm going to be sharing with you two of my favorite fruit pizzas to make with homemade naan bread. Sometimes I use the store-bought kind. Totally okay, whichever is most convenient for you. But I just made homemade naan bread, and that recipe I will share with you now. And for this blueberry feta one, I am actually going to be using a whipped feta dip that I made earlier. I'm going to link to that recipe as well. That feta dip, you guys, it's just amazing. You've got to try it if you've never tried it before. And inside this feta dip is feta, like half a block of feta, some cream cheese, pistachios, some sweet basil, and then I had a bowl of honey in there. You can see we've kind of been snacking on this, so I'm going to use some of this up in my blueberry feta pizza today. And I am going to grab a slice of my naan bread here, and I am actually going to just spread this on top. Now, if I didn't have this whipped feta dip, I would probably just use some feta crumbles. Totally okay to do. I have definitely done that before, but this is one of my things I look forward to making for one of my lunches, the whipped feta dip with the homemade naan bread. So I've spread some of that on top. And if you have some jam, like apricot jam, pear jam, I'm going to be making pear gorgonzola pizza, so I'm saving my pear jam for that. Maybe some light strawberry preserves, a little bit of a sweeter jam. You could spread some of that on top as well. So good. I usually do with the apricot jam. I'm going to leave that off today. There is honey in this whipped feta dip already, but I'm going to tell you a little secret to keeping your blueberries, your rolling fruit onto your food. drizzle that honey on top just a little bit. Doesn't take too much. And then you can put your blueberries on, and that honey helps stick them to your pizza. If you want to, one of the other things that sometimes I do is I will go ahead and take some of my feta dip and put it on like a little plate or little dish and smash my blueberries into it. Ooh, that's delicious as well. And then I'm going to take a little bit of fresh mint, sprinkle it on top. I am very big on using up things we have on hand. So one of the other mint recipes I've done recently is my winter citrus salad with grapefruit and oranges. Put some mint on that. Oh, so good. Okay, so this is really simple. It's really laid back. So again, it's feta. You've got mint, you got blueberries, you got honey. If you got a little jam, put that on as well. I'm going to actually scoot this one over onto my baking dish, and we are going to make our pear gorgonzola. I'm jumping right into my pear gorgonzola naan bread pizza. Sorry about the puppy barking in the background. She's looking out the window. For this recipe, we are going to do 1 pear sliced. I like to dice mine up into bite-sized pieces, not pizzas. We're going to use some thyme, and we're going to use some feta and some gorgonzola cheese. Now, if you're just joining in, I have a pre-made whipped honey feta dip. I've already linked to that recipe, linked to it again for you. I'm going to leave it in the description below because this whipped feta dip is amazing. It goes so good with so many different recipes. It's great for just snacking. So my feta combination is coming from this dip today. If I didn't have this, I would just use some feta crumbles and kind of just blend them in. So I have my pear sliced, actually, and I would drizzle a little bit of honey onto my naan bread so that the feta crumbles, the gorgonzola, and the pear all kind of sticks to it nicely. However, since I have my dip already, I'm going to just kind of spread this on. This dip has some honey in it. It's got a little cream cheese. It's got pistachios on top. It goes so good with pita bread and Triscuits. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle on just a little bit of thyme. If you got some fresh thyme, it goes great as well. And we are going to go ahead and put our pear slices on. I'm going to drizzle just a little bit of honey on top. Again, this is to help the gorgonzola cheese crumbles stay on. I am using this recipe today to use up the gorgonzola crumbles that I have. We did a winter spinach salad with apples and candied pecans and gorgonzola cheese. If you have not ever tried that salad before, oh my goodness, you have to. It is so, so good. Even my picky kids like that salad. So I'm going to take these gorgonzola crumbles and just kind of put them on top. Now, gorgonzola has a bit of a bite to it, so if you have never had it before, go a little bit light. I happen to really enjoy it, so I kind of lay it on a little bit thick. That's all there is to this little pear naan bread pizza. I'm going to bake this one along with my blueberry feta one in the oven at 350 degrees for, goodness, maybe 3 to 5 minutes. It doesn't take long. Traditionally, if I am making this, usually I'm using like fresh mozzarella and pepperonis and olives and onions. I wait until the cheese has melted. But since we're using like a dip cheese, a feta cheese, I'm only going to bake this in the oven for like 3 minutes probably, just till it's nice and warm. Here are our fruit naan bread pizzas. We have the pear with pear cinnamon jam, gorgonzola cheese. The whipped feta dip on the bottom. We have the blueberry with the whipped feta dip and fresh mint and honey drizzle. These are so good. They're some of my favorites. Such an easy, delicious lunch to make. Or you can even make them for a brunch when you're having some family and friends over. Hope you all love these recipes as much as I do. Thank you all so much for sharing them with your family and friends. We'll see y'all next time.